and welcome everyone to Conservation Connector, a series that PSEC started last year in 2023. And we bring to you various topics that you can find recordings of on YouTube channel, on PSEC's YouTube. Today, we are welcoming Justin Merrifield, who is with the NRCS easement acquisition team with the Land Trust Alliance. And really excited to actually welcome Justin home virtually, who is originally from Northern Illinois, and we're so glad to have you. He is a conservation ecologist and joined the Land Trust Alliance just this year to lead their NRCS conservation acquisition team. The team helps Land Trust navigate the various programs through a Land Trust Alliance and NRCS partnership. He's not new to the Land Trust world, and prior to LTA was conservation director for the Athens Land Trust, where he resides currently in Athens, Georgia. So welcome, Justin, and we really look forward to your talk today, and there will be time for questions afterwards. Take it away.
Hey y'all, thanks for that introduction. Yes, I'm Justin. I am with the Land Trust Alliance, and I'm super happy to be here today to talk about some of these NRCS conservation easement programs through the Farm Bill, and also some of the resources that we can offer at the Alliance to help with those. So you should all be seeing my PowerPoint presentation. Is that correct?
Looks terrific.
Okay, perfect. So, find my right screen here. There we go. So that's me, Justin Merrifield, Senior Project Manager for the NRCS Conservation Acquisition Team. A little bit of background is just that this team came about kind of late last year, early this year, through discussions between the Alliance and NRCS, essentially acknowledging that there is, with the Inflation Reduction Act coming down right now, there's a lot of money available for conservation through NRCS programs. So much so that they are not confident that there's enough folks active in these programs to be able to spend all the money that there is available. So the Alliance put together this team to kind of step in and help build capacity and build resources for ASEP and RCPP easement acquisitions. And so brought me on board back in January. And after that, we were able to build out an entire team this past June, and we are up and running now. So we'll talk a little bit about that at the end of the presentation. But first of all, let's just talk about what are the NRCS easement programs that we're discussing today. There are two. There are ASEP and RCPP. ASEP is the Agricultural Conservation Easement Program. RCPP is the Regional Conservation Partnership Program. And under these, there are a couple of different sub-programs. So under ASEP, there's ASEP ALE that protects farms, ranches, cropland, and grassland. There's also ASEP WRE, which is designed to acquire easements and restore degraded wetlands on ag properties. ASEP WRE easements are held by the federal government. They're not held by a land trust or other entity. So we're not going to be talking about those today. And same with RCPP. There are entity-held easements, which kind of mimic the ASEP ALE program in how they're designed and structured. There's also U.S.-held easements, which kind of mimic the ASEP WRE program and how they're designed and structured. So we're not going to be talking about U.S.-held easements either. We're just going to be talking about ones that are held not by the federal government, but by a third party, in this case, usually land trusts. The easement programs that we're discussing are there to protect agricultural viability and the related conservation values. The ultimate goal of these programs are to keep farmland in farm, to keep them in active production, not let them be kind of gobbled up by development. The dollars and cents of this is that NRCS purchases a portion of the conservation easement value from the landowner. And that's sort of the carrot to make these programs seem worthwhile. So typically that is about 50% of the easement value. There are certain circumstances where the federal government will purchase 75% of the easement value. Usually they are either grasslands of special significance, which can reach that 75% under ALE, or under RCPP if you're working with landowners who are historically underserved. So BIPOC landowners, veteran farmers, or new and beginning farmers, they can also reach 75% easement value purchase. Let's talk about what it takes to get an entity eligible, so a land trust or other non-governmental organization eligible to participate in these programs. Eligible entities can be either state or local governments. They can be indigenous tribal entities, or they can be non-governmental organizations, land trusts, or other NGOs. Under the way these programs are structured, NRCS works with the entity and the entity works with the landowner. And the entity is the one that the NGO is the one who is making the written pending offer to purchase the easement from the landowner. NRCS is providing the funding to the entity to make that purchase. So there's a couple different ways that can be structured, but that's at the basic level how it works. The land trust says, "Hey, this is a great farm. You know, John and Jane Farmer, we think it's absolutely worth protecting. We want to buy this easement from you." NRCS provides the funding to purchase that conservation easement. To become an eligible entity under NRCS for ASEP and RCPP, there are a few things that you have to hit. You have to have the authority to, authority and capability to acquire, manage, and enforce ag land easements or their equivalent. You have to have some sort of established farmland protection program. So there has to be some sort of history demonstrated that, yes, we are interested and we are ready to protect farmland in particular, and we're not just a river land trust or a forest land trust. We have a farmland program as well. You have to demonstrate a commitment to long-term conservation of ag lands. You have to have the availability of funds at the time of application to meet your contribution requirements, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And you have to have, staff capacity at some level to monitor and steward the easement. So you take on the easement, the easement deed, and then also steward it in perpetuity. The eligible entity is responsible for legal and administrative processes. You have to hold title. You have to meet some other, very minutia requirements laid out in the easement manual. Pay the procurement costs. So that would be if the property the property will require an appraisal. If it needs a survey, meets and bounds or legal definition or legal boundary delineation. If it needs, closing costs, attorney fees, those kind of procurement costs. There are performance deadlines that NRCS requires you to hit. You have to, from the time of obligation, you have 3 years to acquire the easement. So that's your deadline. And then you have to monitor at least on an annual basis. Maintain a unique ID within SAM.gov. That's pretty easy. And if you've ever received federal funding or some sort of federal grant, you probably already have done that. And then complete monitoring and enforce the terms of the easement deed, as we talked about with stewardship. So there's a lot of things, but if you are a land trust who acquires easements during normal donated transactions, you're probably already doing 90% of this anyway. So let's talk about land eligibility now. We're going to talk about eligible entities. We're going to talk about land eligibility. And then at the end of this, we're going to talk about what makes a farmer eligible too. So right here in the middle, let's talk about land. So first of all, it has to be private or tribally owned land that is agricultural. So it cannot be publicly owned property. It cannot be held by, state or local government. It has to be private land or tribal land. The tribe may be the eligible entity or the landowner, but they can't be both. They would essentially be acquiring an easement from themselves and then stewarding themselves, which is not a great thing to do. It has to be subject to a written pending offer from the land trust or from the other eligible entity. It has to be eligible for one or more of the enrollment option categories, which we'll talk about on the next slide. And it also has to meet eligible land categories, which we'll talk about in 2 slides. The land has to be in an area that has access to agricultural markets, and it has to face development pressure. So NRCS wants to see that it is currently a viable farm. It has to produce at least $1,000 of on-farm income, which isn't really that hard to do. But it has to have a market that it can provide those services or those goods to, and it has to be in danger at some level of not being a farm anymore because of development. I'm from Illinois. I go back and visit family a lot. I know there's a lot of development in Illinois, so it is not that hard to face that development pressure. So the four enrollment categories that we talked about, it has to meet one of these. It does not have to meet more than one. It gets no extra credit if it meets more than one. It just has to meet one. The easiest and the one that, when I was doing this work in Georgia, the one that almost all of our enrollment categories fell under was the prime, unique, or other productive soils. That is in the web soil survey, the soil mapper that NRCS houses. It is at least 50% prime, unique, or other productive soils. We can talk about that in a little bit later on in the presentation. Or it could meet historical or archaeological resources on the farm, and that has to have been archaeologically surveyed and proven. It can't just be kind of speculative. Grazing uses or other related conservation values. This is the grasslands of special significance that I mentioned earlier. Or it can further a state or local policy. So if the county that you operate in has a mandate on the books at the county level that says we think farming is important. I'll use Rockford for example. We think farming in Winnebago County is important. We're worried about urban sprawl from Rockford kind of gobbling up farmland, and so we would like to protect farms from that level of development. So then that property is eligible through a state or local policy and doesn't necessarily need to meet the productive soils or the other ones. So ineligible land types are, as I mentioned before, has to be private land. So land that's owned by the United States or land that's owned by fee title for a state or local government are not eligible. Land owned by an NGO whose purpose is to protect agricultural land use and related conservation values, except in the case of buy, protect, sell. So this one's a little confusing, so let's break it down for a second. If your land trust or your nonprofit holds property in fee title and your goal with that property is to protect it, that is not eligible based on the NRCS criteria because NRCS thinks because you are already a conservation nonprofit who owns this land, it's not in danger. Um, which is why that little section there is italicized. I had a question, and it's the first time it had ever come up, that there was a church that was a nonprofit that owned some farmland and was interested in having it protected. And so that would be an NGO who is not a conservation minded NGO, and therefore that land would be eligible. Buy, protect, sell as an option is a little bit kind of further down the road. We're kind of keeping this 101 level. But buy, protect, sell is essentially a nonprofit or land trust purchases a farm, places a conservation easement on it to reduce the fair market value because of the rights that have been purchased away from it through the easement, and then now sells that property to a new farmer at the reduced value. That is buy, protect, sell. It is complicated. It is not um, widely used. We can get to that in the Q&A section if anyone wants to talk more about buy, protect, sell. The last ineligible land type is land subject to an easement or deed restriction similar to an NRCS protection. So if there's already an easement on it, if there's already something on it that is restricting the development, NRCS doesn't want to double layer that protection. Just a few more. Land where the purposes of the program for the conservation programs would be undermined due to on-site or off-site conditions. This is typically your hazardous, toxic, radioactive waste contamination. If it's next door to a dump, if it has some, mine leaching or something like that, there could be some things that are reducing the conservation potential of that property, and so NRCS doesn't want to mess with that. Land that NRCS determines has unacceptable exceptions to clear title. So this is something we see a lot here in the South, heirs property, where a land that's been in a family for a very long time is passed down through generations without an active will from generation to generation. There might be a number of claimants on the deed to that property that they themselves may not know that they are on. We've seen 20, 30, 40, different brothers, sisters, cousins, fourth cousins on deeds that didn't know they were there. But because of the requirement that the property have clear title, they would not be able to confer the easement to the land trust. So therefore, they would have to have those title exceptions cleared up beforehand. Land with insufficient legal access, we see this one a lot with either rivers or train tracks. If there are things that may prevent a four-wheeled vehicle from accessing the property, either logistically or legally, those would need to be cleared up before the easement could move forward. And the last one here I colored in, it's really not, it's more of an issue out west. I don't believe it's an issue here in Illinois, but if there are severed mineral rights for the property, that's not necessarily something that makes it ineligible, but it does require a deeper dive into some of the nuance. Landowner eligibility. So we talked about the entity eligibility, we talked about the land eligibility, and last one here is the landowner. All landowners, as listed in the property here, the deed must be established with FSA in their SCIMS system. So, and income for all landowners must be no more than 900,000 annually averaged over the previous 3 years. Both of these things are really easy to get your head around if it's one owner or a family that owns or a couple of partners. But we know that's not always the case. We know that there are properties where it might be owned in LLC. The LLC might have 10, 20, 50 members of the LLC. If that is the case, and we'll just say 50 and we'll use an extreme example. First of all 50 members of that LLC have to be registered with FSA. So got to get them to go down to their local FSA office and fill out the forms to be in the SCIM system. And all 50 of those members must make less than 900,000 annually over the last 3 years. Now, let's say 49 of them do, and there is one millionaire in that LLC. There are provisions in place where that 1/50th of the LLC could be removed from the easement, and the value that NRCS would be purchasing the easement at would also be reduced by 1/50th. So there are plans in place for how to handle that. There is one extra little wrinkle right now. So everything we've talked about for ASEP and RCPP has to do with the Farm Bill side of the program. Because of the Inflation Reduction Act and this tremendous amount of funding that has come out and will be coming out for the next 5-ish years, I think, 6 years. The Inflation Reduction Act eligibility has a couple extra requirements. Everything Inflation Reduction Act related has to have some sort of climate mitigation goal. That was mandated by Congress. That was how the money was going to be put forth. So for these NRCS easement programs, they decided the best way that these programs could mitigate climate impacts is through carbon sequestration. And the best way that these NRCS easement programs could sequester carbon are either protecting grassland or native vegetation where NRCS has identified a high threat of conversion, or protecting cropland where NRCS has identified a high threat of conversion. So really what this does is it makes it so that essentially the farm's got to be growing something. The ranch has to be growing something, and it can't be, just animal ag. And it has to be, in danger of being converted to non-farm uses. So that was a very fast 101 kind of level about NRCS easement programs through both the Farm Bill and the IRA. And so now we can talk about some of the resources that the Land Trust Alliance has to help y'all out in accessing these programs. And first and foremost of that is myself and my team, the NRCS Conservation Acquisition Team, or NCAT, as we have been calling it. And we love the fact that we have a brand new acronym for everyone to remember, and also that that acronym contains an acronym within it. Everybody loves acronyms within acronyms, little Russian nesting dolls of acronyms. So our team, myself, the senior project manager, we have two project specialists, Josh Holmes and Diane Holt. Josh is based in Idaho. Diane is based here in Georgia. And so they pretty much split the country in half. If you're a Western state that is interested in accessing our support, we'll send you to Josh. If you're an Eastern state, we'll send you to Diane. we're kind of using the river more or less as the line. So for Illinois, y'all will be working with Diane if you access our support. We also have Lindsay Reamer, who is our project assistant on this team, and she is working behind the scenes. She's going to be doing a lot of our data tracking and milestone monitoring. One of the really cool things that we're looking to do with this program is kind of track how these projects are moving through the system and finding out where some of the bottlenecks are and where the slowdowns are, and how we can report that back to NRCS to continue to improve these programs. And so Lindsay's kind of working behind the scenes to track all of that. And I do want to point out, we mentioned this at the top of the presentation, but this is through a partnership with NRCS. So all NCAT services are offered free of charge through the Land Trust Alliance from NRCS. They're already paying me to do this, so nobody else has to pay us a dime to help out. So what does that help look like? So we're here to support land trusts who are taking the steps into ASEP and RCVP. We can support them and answer questions about entity eligibility, parcel eligibility. We can coordinate with their state staff. We can work with, helping y'all out with timelines and checklists and keeping everything on track. I do want to point out right now that all states typically have a state easement coordinator at the NRCS state office. That position is vacant right now for Illinois. Otherwise, I would have dropped their contact info right here. But we are tracking and sort of getting ourselves established with the NRCS state office and all the states. So, they're not surprised when they see us or hear from us or hear about some land trusts that we're working with. We're also here to offer a little bit, more support, a little bit next tier of support for land trusts that really need it. And what that looks like is essentially helping you with one-on-one support and putting together your application package and your acquisition package. So for the application package, we can work within shared documents. We can review the application package itself. We can kind of check for completeness and for things that might be missing or things that might be input wrong. Scheduling monthly check-ins or more often, if necessary, check-ins so that we're all on a call together, kind of talking through things. And for the acquisition package, the same thing. So we can work with you from the obligation of funds to the closing table. Shared documents, package reviews, monthly check-ins with our staff and the NRCS state staff to just make sure that everybody's all on the same page. Constant communication, in my experience with these programs, constant communication with NRCS is what really leads to success, so that everybody knows where everything is and people aren't kind of siloed and people, know who that they can contact when they need assistance on either side from NRCS or from the land trust. I need to point this out that unfortunately the laws of supply and demand exist. And so right now we are just myself and two specialists. We have built this brand new system or this brand new team in the last couple of months. And because we're building the plane as it's taken off, we kind of don't know what our capacity is going to be to help folks right now. So we are right now working to prioritize land trusts and prioritize entities who have less capacity and less experience with NRCS programs, just under the assumption that they're the ones that are going to need our help a little bit more than some of the more established land trusts or the bigger land trusts or the better resource land trusts. So we really want to help the folks that need the help the most. That's why we're here. So we have some rough guardrails for what that looks like. On the Land Trust Alliance website, we have the Find a Land Trust tool. And so all I did is I went on to Find a Land Trust and I pulled every land trust nationwide that's in our system that has some sort of stated agriculture or farm or ranch protection goal. And there were 402 of them. And when I looked at those 402, the mean number of conservation easements across all of them was 38 conservation easements. And so I figured, well, if we're wanting to help the ones who need a little bit more help, we got to look below that 38 number. So for general guardrails, we decided that our priority land trusts that we want to work with and really give that top tier of assistance to, that one-on-one level of assistance to, probably holds fewer than 30 conservation easements, has probably done fewer than four NRCS, ASAP, and RCPP easements. They, may have tried out the programs once or twice, but aren't really super comfortable with them yet. And they probably have fewer than four conservation staff full time. That's not counting, your social media people and your bookkeepers and your admin folks. That's, the staff that are focused on conservation easements. So fewer than four of those. And again, these are guardrails. If you think, oh man, I've got 35 conservation easements, or I've got, five full-time staff, reach out to us, talk to us. We can look at what supply and demand looks like at the moment and see how we can help you out. And even if we're a little slammed, and we are not slammed right now, and we're coming into this first round of ASAP applications here this fall. So we've got capacity right now if you're looking and you're interested in getting some projects in. But just to go through some of the things that we can help out with. This is the CPA 41 document. On the left is the entity. That's the classic 41. On the right is the CPA 41A document. That's your parcel. And these are the two things that you would put in at the application stage to get a project, get yourself approved as an entity, and then get a project approved as a parcel. So we can help walk you through these. We can also, if you're working on RCPP, it's kind of the same thing, but it's kind of not. This is the CPA 1275. And this is where you spell out, what you're looking to protect for the entity and the parcel in RCPP. This is web soil survey. I mentioned this earlier. So if you were trying to apply for a parcel through the 50% qualifying soils, this is the tool that you would use, and we can help you out in how this tool works and how to use it. This is a project I worked on here in Georgia that we got protected through ASAP. It is actually, as shown here, it's 48% qualifying soils. It's the blue and the green are the qualifying here in Georgia. So we had to make some tweaks to this outline to make sure that it could get protected. But this is, quick little hit of web soil survey. We can help you with closing packages, and this is one checklist that NRCS has provided to go through for what a complete closing package looks like. We're actually working on putting together one of our own that we can provide to land trusts that is maybe a little bit more user friendly and a little less jargony than the NRCS supplied one. I am going to apologize ahead of time because I can see I forgot to change one thing here. I just gave this talk last week in Delaware too, and I forgot to change that title. I changed the bar graph and I changed the note at the bottom, and I forgot to change the title, and now I'm embarrassed. But this is easements in Illinois right now. So this is partner held easements. So that's going to be both ASAP and RCPP. The bottom graph is easements enrolled, and the top graph is easements closed by calendar year. This is not a lot. So in the last, what is that, 8 years, there have only been 6 conservation easements enrolled in these programs in Illinois. And in the last 8 years, there have only been 4 or 5 that have been closed in Illinois. So one thing I wanted to highlight by showing you this is there is an absolute opportunity right now. The program in other states is seeing a lot more enrollments and a lot more closings than Illinois is. So that is an opportunity right now in Illinois to get some good farms protected and to get some good properties submitted to this. So if there's farms or if there's properties that you're interested in, I think you should take a shot at it. I also want to point out some other resources at the Alliance. It's not just the NCAT. It is also Nikki Nesberry, our senior manager for all of our NRCS programs. We just brought on back in March, Jeremy Luigi, who is our new program manager specifically for RCPP. So he's working to answer questions for land trusts interested in RCPP, and also kind of work as like a much higher level, 50,000-foot view go between NRCS and land trusts about what's working and what isn't with that particular program. We also have our Farm Bill Working Group. It meets monthly, and it's updates about how whatever even year we're calling this, 2023 Farm Bill is progressing. Now it's a 2024 Farm Bill. It's looking like it's probably going to be a 2025 Farm Bill. But we have updates on that monthly and also just sort of like some good kind of peer Q&A for land trusts that are working within these programs. And then Mary Kay O'Donnell is our Midwest Senior Program Manager for our field team, and she's great. And if you haven't interacted with her, I recommend just reaching out and saying hi. Mary Kay is really, really on the ball and really good to work with for Midwest states. We also have our resource center. There's the ASEP ALE toolkit that's up there currently. It was put up in 2020. It's getting a little long in the tooth and it's due for facelift kind of beginning of next year, but it is there and it is a good resource for answering questions. There's also an heirs property toolkit for that title concern that I talked about a little bit earlier. We're working on an RCPP toolkit right now. Hopefully it's going to be up by the end of the year. I think that's the goal we're kind of working with. We also have archived webinars, success stories as well. And we're working on expanding our NRCS resources on the Resource Center to be its own kind of full landing page where everything will be collected and expanded upon a little bit better. And that should be out hopefully later this fall. Um, what we do have up there right now is this intent to apply form. So if you're interested in NCAT services, if you have questions or want to talk through some properties or what it means to be an eligible entity, any of those questions. If you want to just go on and fill out this quick little form, it's in the Resource Center in the ASEP toolkit. We're also working on centering it a little bit better so it's not quite buried so deep and easier to find. But this is essentially what gets you in the queue. This form kicks over to Lindsay, our behind the scenes person. She gets it entered into a big database, and that way we're making sure that it's easier to track everyone that we're working with. So what does the future hold for our NRCS support? We've got Rally coming up at the end of this month. Hope to see everybody there. The NCAT is going to be holding office hours at Rally this year. We're just going to post up at a table next to registration and have somebody there at all times who can answer questions and meet and greet and talk about, offer advice, talk about what it means to protect farms and why you should be doing it. And I don't know, maybe tell some bad jokes. One of us just put an album out. We might be selling that at the table. So come by and see us if you're going to be at Rally. We also have the upcoming ASEP ALE fall ranking periods. Several states are starting to release their ranking periods. They're looking at early October right now. Illinois has not released their deadline for ASEP applications for next year yet. I can tell you that the application deadline for last year was November 13th. So I imagine the deadline for this year is probably going to be pretty similar. So that gives you about 2 months to get together a project that you're kicking around. And let me tell you, 2 months for the application stage, plenty of time. So, well, I don't want to say plenty of time. If you want help, like we'll help you out and don't wait till the last minute. But don't think that it's too close and you're not going to be able to get something together in time. You can do it in 2 months. The IRA deadline, they're doing two of them this year and they're set nationally. So the first one is October 4th. I'm not saying that you don't have enough time to get together an application for the October 4th deadline. I am saying that it's going to be a lot of work if you do, if you're starting from zero. There's also a December 20th deadline. That one is the one that I would suggest targeting if you're not already involved in putting an application together. And that also gives you plenty of time to get in the door with the NCAT, and we can help you out as well. There's also plans to expand the NCAT in 2025. As I mentioned, supply and demand. We're building demand right now, and we are planning on bringing in more supply at the start of the next year, hopefully to hit the RCBP notice of funding next year. We don't know when that's going to be. It's typically supposed to be February, March. It was May, June, July this year. So we want to be ready to help folks put together good RSVP proposals ahead of that deadline as well. So just a couple of upcoming webinars from the Alliance. If you're interested in those, they make me put this in at the end of all my presentations. We also have the Connect Online, Ask an Expert on our Resource Center. We have Rally coming up at the end of this month that I mentioned, and I can answer any questions about anything I've covered so far.
Justin, thank you so much. That was
Mhm.
a lot of information. You delivered it so well. I understand things better, and I'm sure there are people in the room who have worked on these projects. So, yeah, let's just open it up to questions. Feel free to come off camera, stay on camera, raise your hand. And Daniel, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Hi there. Thanks so much for the presentation. It's super useful. Cleared up a lot of things. I had a question about the RCPP types of projects that might be eligible for RCPP. So I'm calling from Open Lands in Chicago. We're a land trust that does a lot of projects under a buy, protect, sell structure, where the takeout entity at the end, the person we sell to after we've put an easement down, is a county organization, usually a county forest preserve or a county conservation district. Would that type of transaction structure be something that's eligible under the RCPP?
It would. So RCBP is, and first of all, thanks for coming on. I actually talked to right after I got started in this role, like back in January, February. I talked to one of your colleagues, Samantha at Open Lands,
Oh, great.
about some work that they were doing too, or that she was doing. So RCBP is designed to be the think outside the box program at NRCS. It's for projects that don't fit neatly into any of their other Farm Bill conservation programs. So ASEP, EQIP, CSP, as a way to kind of bundle projects together that don't fit neatly into those boxes, and also just get creative. So absolutely, what you described would work for RCBP. The devil is in the details. And so that is something that you should start talking to your Illinois. Again, because the position's vacant, I would reach out to the assistant state con for programs at Illinois, and just open with, we have this idea for an RCPP. It's a buy, protect, sell. We want to protect some forest land, and we are targeting this municipal government as the final landowner, and just go from there. It will work, or it should. I don't want to speak for NRCS. It should work. There's just going to be some minutia in what level of protection under RCPP, and what types of easements will work there.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And welcome, Mary Kay. It's great to see you. You missed the part where Justin was beaming about you, I think.
I came in just at exactly the right moment. So
Oh,
thank you,
good.
Justin. I appreciate
Mhm.
that.
Excellent, excellent. Okay.
Sorry I was late.
Oh, Dan, another Dan.
That's right. This is Dan from the Conservation Foundation. On one of your slides, you said from the date of enrollment to closing is about 30 months. That's a long time for most landowners. Are there any ways to streamline that?
So yes and no. So the average time from start to finish is 23 and a half months nationwide. Illinois, and I don't know the reason for this, and I'm not gonna cast stones anywhere, but Illinois is longer. Illinois is 30 months, so they're about 6 months longer than the national average. The shortest one, I just looked this up yesterday, and I cannot remember who the shortest state was now, but it's 17 months, which is still a long time. Um, if you get so okay, I can lay out the timeline. So let's say you apply in November. You find out that your application was accepted and your funds are obligated probably about 6 months later. You'll find that out early 2025. So that's your obligation time. So that's when NRCS officially starts the clock. So it would be, 30 months for Illinois, 30 months from when those funds are obligated and the clock starts. If everything goes perfectly, if you get nothing but green lights, if this is the easiest conservation easement to draft, if the title is pristine, if you don't have to survey out anything, you can probably get it done in 18, 15 months, 18 months, with all green lights, which I recognize is still not fast. But also it can only go at the speed of government bureaucracy. There are a number of checks within NRCS that can't be sped up. Things where you submit it to the state and the state has to submit it to headquarters in DC and it has to get reviewed there. And there are review timelines that are set in place that are usually 30 or 60 days that just can't be sped up in any way. Where a lot of the schedule slip comes in, and especially at Illinois at the 30-month, schedule slip, it can be, there's time back and forth between yourself and at the land trust and the landowner, where a week slips here, a week slips there, and you do that several times, you can lose a couple of months pretty easy. If you have surveyors or appraisers who are fully booked up and can't get to you for 2 or 3 months, that's where time can slip. Without, unfortunately, and they're paying my paychecks. I don't want to speak ill of NRCS, but without an easement coordinator in place, things are probably going to take longer at the Illinois state level until they can fill that role. NRCS, to their credit, has been staffing up very aggressively. And part of that was taking some of their best and highest performing people from the state level and moving them to headquarters. And unfortunately, that kind of brain drains the state. And then it takes time to get a new person in that role and then fully trained up. So they are offering a lot of training. They are staffing up aggressively, and they have recognized that some of those vacancies are impacting the people that they're trying to serve. So, and it is a little bit of a chicken and egg scenario right now because Illinois isn't getting a lot of applications. There's not a lot of impetus to fill the role and train up a new person and to speed those things up. And so I think to improve on that, there's the need to show demand as well.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. Chris, you came off camera. Do you have a question? Or on camera?
Yeah, thanks, Cynthia. Justin, really appreciate the presentation. Chris Reynolds, I'm with American Farmland Trust and based here in Illinois. And, I think you're spot on with a lot of your comments about the capacity of NRCS currently. And we're currently working on finishing up an agreement with NRCS, which would allow us to add a staff person working on ASAP in Illinois. So if everything goes as we hope it will, by January we should have somebody working alongside NRCS, providing that support that's needed. Hopefully driving more applications to NRCS, working with the local land trust as a liaison, and hopefully reducing that 30-month time period that it's taking to get the easements in place. So I just want to mention that's probably a similar agreement to what you have with NRCS, just at the state level. So we're excited about that. We also know that we have some legislation in Illinois that will be helpful, and if we can get that passed, and trying to establish a state PACE program, which would allow some additional funds to be leveraged for ASAP Ale. So just want to mention that, and happy to talk more about that if others have questions. But Angie Doucette's our farmland protection manager. She couldn't make the meeting today, but Justin, you may have talked with her in the past. So excited about that partnership with NRCS.
That's super great to hear, Chris. Yeah, I just had a meeting with Chris Coffin and the whole team last month, just to kind of make sure that nobody's stepping on anybody's toes and we can support each other rather than trying to fight over assisting the same farmer. And I think it's gonna be real great. And I think I can say that here in Georgia, we just got, and this is back from my time at a land trust in 2022, we got an AFT person named Annalise who was here in our working with our NRCS state office, and she really helped out with applications and with outreach, and it was really great. And back in 2022, we also just launched our own Georgia PACE program. It is not funded yet. It's 2024 and it's not funded yet, but it is in legislation, and so that is the first step. So yeah, I can tell you from 2 years ahead that all those things that you just mentioned are going to be real great for Illinois.
sounds like a nice opportunity to lift some language too, instead of rewriting things.
Yes, yes.
That's awesome. I'm curious if there's, we've got some of our conservation land trusts here in the Zoom room. Does anyone want to come on camera or come off, just talk to us about NRCS programs that you're doing? And is anyone active in that program currently with your farmland? Nope. I know there are some that have some farmland, but I guess that was done in a different way. Well, this is great. And Justin, for people to connect with you, like you said, go through that form and then so that you're in in the database.
Yeah, but also you can feel free to reach out to me at jmerrifield@lta.org or ncat@lta.org as well. Those are two ways to reach me and my team really quickly. Because we haven't centered that form as well as I would like right now on the website. It's a little bit tougher to find. So we can help you, get a direct link to it and help walk you through, kind of the bare minimum to get in the door.
Yeah, that's great. Are there any other questions out there? Daniel.
Hi there, Danny again from Open Lands. I've got a sort of more technical question that maybe is not in your realm of knowledge. Maybe it is. We've been trying to get our organization set up in the SCIMS record, SCIMS, which you mentioned at one point during your presentation. And our program specialist at our county, our Cook County FSA office, told us it didn't really seem like that was going to be a necessary step, that because we have a farm number associated with our various tenant farmer producers that we work with, that was all of the registration we needed, that we did not need to go further and do a SCIMS record. And also, I didn't really find any information online through a quick search about how to register in SCIMS. So I was curious if you had any guidance about that.
So you are correct in that is a little bit above my pay grade, unfortunately. And here's the issue, and this is something we've heard from a number of land trusts, which is FSA is its own organization, and it is a cousin to NRCS, but they don't really communicate all that well. And so we just held a summit last month with NRCS and a number of land trusts who are very, very active in these programs. And that was one of the things that came up a lot, was folks kind of using the time to get some things off their heart about FSA. So we came up with some ideas about how NRCS could potentially try to get FSA a little bit more involved in, dotting I's and crossing T's for these programs and to make sure that everything is working together well. But I don't have a good answer for you right now. There's a lot of we hopes and we're going to tries.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's no problem. I just thought I would bring it up since I had you here.
Absolutely.
Mary Kay, I'm curious, as our neighbor to the north, northeast, depending on where you are. What is your experience with the land trusts in Michigan and NRCS?
Justin may already be able to answer this question better than I am. And Justin, I don't know if Michigan is in more of a unique position because of the fruit belt and the types of farms that are entering into the NRCS, ASAP and RCPP. I hear from land trusts same issues with length of time. Justin, I don't know if you have numbers on other Midwest states, but the frustration with how long it takes. Go ahead, Justin.
Oh no, I'm pulling all those numbers up right now.
Okay.
I'm in the database. So Michigan is very active in the easement programs. They have at least one, but a couple, I think, certified entities. And a certified entity is an entity that has been involved in ASEP ALE long enough. They've closed at least 10 easements that NRCS says, you know what, you do good work. We don't have to give you the same checks that other, newer entities get. There's currently 42 certified entities nationwide. I think there's a couple in Michigan, but I know at least Legacy Land Trust is. And so that can speed up easement acquisition through ASEP ALE by 6 months. But so Michigan, and I just pulled up the database, they get it looks between 10 and 20 enrollments a year. So significantly more than Illinois. Their time to close right now is is 20 months, so about 10 months faster as well. But that can be any number of reasons. That can be state staff that are more familiar with the programs. That can be land trust staff that are more familiar with the programs. And honestly, a wheel in motion stays in motion. So, it can just be assembly lined at this point.
Thank you, Justin. Appreciate that.
Mhm.
I can tell you, rumor has it that it is a Michigan land trust that is responsible for naming the ale program. After a celebration with Senator Stabenow on the Farm Bill many years ago, I believe they were drinking ale and they thought, wait,
Perfect.
I think we can do this.
I can tell you that all of those easements are in the Mitten part of Michigan because I've had some UP land trusts reach out about how that they can get involved as well. So
I actually think that makes sense that that's where you see them.
a little bit, yeah.
Well, in part too, I mean, different kinds of farmland,
Mhm.
but also the larger land
Yes.
trusts are in the Lower Peninsula.
Mhm.
Cynthia, did that help answer your question just from a
Yeah.
comparison?
Yes, I think it's great to make those comparisons, especially regionally and in Illinois with so much of its land in farmland and a lot of small farms. It seems like there could be some momentum there for our land trusts to delve into that. So it'll be really interesting to see as we talk about protecting natural areas, wildlife habitats, and farmland and working lands. So it'll be really and Justin, I think you said this does not cost our conservation land trust anything to connect with you and to get your help. Is that
It
right?
does not.
Right?
It does not.
I mean, that's amazing because we have some conservation land trusts that are all volunteer, some very large ones like open lands and um, medium size. And so, this is just a great opportunity. And of course, accessing any kind of funds is such a kind of a block for organizations, especially if they're small staffed or all volunteer. And so to have this opportunity to access funds through your professional help is quite amazing. So very happy to share, this news today and to have you jump on with us. It's a great education. Any last quite? We have 5 minutes before we close. And again, this will be on YouTube. So if you want to rewatch the information, it'll be on our channel in several days. But any other questions or last sort of wrap up thoughts, Justin?
I just think that Illinois is kind of positioned to really have an opportunity to use these programs in a way that they aren't being used in the state right now. And Illinois has a lot of farms and a lot of very good farms that can be protected. I got several family members that have farms in northern Illinois, and I would like to see it used there more. So I think between what we can offer and the opportunity that the state presents, I'd really like to hear from some folks that are interested in learning more.
Sounds great. We have great soil in Illinois.
That's a very optimistic and hopeful view. So, thank you, Justin, for being willing to share your expertise with the Illinois Land Trust, and thank you, Cynthia, for bringing Justin in. The team is fantastic. So I heartily support and endorse giving them a call and working with our team.